Explosions!
Hello Gunlancers. New game, new guide. Lost Ark Gunlance, unlike Monster Hunter 1, is broken in the good sense of the word. It is largely considered a S-tier weapon and one of the best of the game, and no without a reason. Gunlancer is a class that is great for solo play, group play and player versus player, with some of the highest ranked players in Korea using it. The reason is simple: you trade off a little of the top damage, not much, and in exchange you gain a huge array of ranged area attacks, a bunch of crowd control, stunning, tripping and paralyzing moves, and the unmatched best defense and durability of the game. Gunlancer is considered a hybrid of DPS and support class. Most people don't even consider it a support class because, unlike Bard and Paladin, can't heal other players. Gunlancer support comes from the good array of area status effect attacks and the signature power to create a barrier that negates all status effects, stun monsters, and reduces all damage. It even is the only one class with a taunt, although it doesn't work like in your typical MMO because it basically only serves to interrupt enemies' attacks, including bosses, and has a hefty initial 22 seconds cooldown. Gunlancers are very welcomed in any group because of these qualities. They provide good damage and work amazingly well together with the healer classes, since they can save the day if things are going to go wrong. For solo play, the other Gunlance signature skill gives it a huge amount of extra health that amounts to the fact you can ignore enemies' attacks and keep attacking while it lasts. It is a friendly class for both beginners and expert players with a good skill cap, since you need to master when to use your powers to negate enemies' attacks. The only backdraw of the class is that it lacks a good evade skill, having just a backhop that is awarded to use and doesn't cover a lot of ground. The evade is still great because it makes you immune to some status effects while active. If you are shielded while using it, you are practically immune to both damage and status effects at once. Gunlance's lack of movement option is compensated with a good range in its skills and the use of a couple of skills where you can move and attack at once. Best example is the trio of basic attacks. The auto combo are 3 slow pokes. They aren't too good but have great range. The third poke has extended range, so is a good follow-up for these attacks that knock enemies away. Now I'm going to review the skill you get before level 20 that you will use for the first hours of the game. The game restricts the number of skills you can use to 8, so sadly you have to weigh very well what to use with a good balance between power and cooldowns. The first skill is called Sharp Gunlance and is more or less the basic stab enhanced. Only virtue is that the cooldown is short and you can virtually use it after any other attack to finish your enemies. The first rune, aka skill customization, enhances the reach of the skill with 3 options. One extends the reach so you can hit enemies from a very good distance. Other make you sweep all around you at the regular range. And the last one is a middle ground where you step forward and hit all enemies in a fan-shaped area in front of you but not to the sides or back. Second level specializations are very costly at the beginning and only are worth using first on your heavy hitting skills that make a difference, so you will not invest here. The other basic skill is the Fire Bullet. It is very similar to the stab, being another ranged long attack with small cooldown. I personally never invest skills here because the first level is pretty useless. The cooldown reduction is small and random and you will have no problem with mana. This is a prime candidate to be replaced early on. The second couple of skills are ones that you will be using for a long time. Rising Gunlance and Dash Upper Fire work almost the same. They are a quick attack followed by a strong shell attack. Difference is that Rising has a lot less cooldown and trips monsters in the second hit, while Upper Fire hits like a truck dot and sends them flying at the first hit. You will use both to greet enemies' waves and have them stopped in their tracks so you can finish them with your basic skills and auto combo. They are so similar that even you want the same first rune for both. Quick preparation shortens the time of use of both, and since they are so important for your gameplay you want to have these ready as much as possible. For the early second specialization, I recommend picking Rising's Thunderstroke. It electrifies, that is a kind of paralysis, enemies for a couple of seconds. While the tripping effect is very similar, this works against sub-bosses who can't be tripped and seems to last a bit longer, so is very good. The other two are just more damage. Upper Fire's second runes are just more damage against everything or bosses or a more spreaded area, so while good is not a top priority. Next group of skills to cover are the shield ones. Bash and Shield Bash are fun in that they have almost the same runes. Bash is a single shield hit that stuns the enemy it hits, while Shield Bash is a running 2-hit combo. Shield Bash has a lot more power and range. The major problem of Bash is that you will miss any enemy unless you are practically kissing it. I would personally pick one or other since the overlapping. The best thing of both is the Armor Destruction rune that reduces enemies' armor by a 15%, so you can use it before unleashing your heavy-hitting attacks for even more massive damage, so you want to have at least one if not both. Mind that if you are in a party, armor reduction means that everybody benefits, so picking both in a group is a very good idea. The third shield skill is Shield Charge. This is a running shield attack that hits multiple times while you move forward. This is good as a 2-for-1 skill since you can use it for running forward or backwards. The bad thing is that you are defenseless using it and the cooldown is long. The runes are made to counter it and raise the utility. First row enhances the damage, reduces the cooldown by 2 seconds or gives you damage reduction. The second level is interesting since it gives you a 15% of your max health as a shield, so you can get hit without losing health. Remember that you may use your signature shield power and use this to run away if you get surrounded by enemies. The damage is also decent and the hits stagger regular enemies, so is also good for attack. An all-around good skill. The other movement skill is the leap attack. It allows you to jump a big distance and hit an enemy, but has a very big problem of leaving you defenseless briefly after using it. Its main use is to jump to the center of the enemies before using another skill like Thunderbolt or to snipe ranged opponents. But the cooldown is too big and is too unsafe to use it without getting some hits. The skill gets a lot better when you get the second rune since you can add status effects to the jump, but requires that investment. Hook Chain is simple. It is another fan-shaped attack where you can yank enemies towards you. The main use of this is to group some enemies so you can hit them easily with your heavy-hitting attacks or bring close to some ranged attackers or both. Bad news is a cooldown of 20 seconds. I personally don't like it too much because you generally want your enemies far so can't attack you. The yanking neither works in bosses, so is not extremely useful at first. The final skill I'm going to talk about is the Guardian's Thunderbolt. It is your heaviest hitting attack, hits every enemy around you and electrifies them. The only problems are a big cooldown and the range is not very much. For the good rune you can get a good cooldown reduction but with a dose of randomness and an additional thunder that hits a second after the area attack. The thunder is great against bosses since it doubles the damage. It is not useful against mobs because they get wiped with one use in general. The second rune best pick is no doubt a wide hit since it allows you to hit more enemies at once. You can get to the center of a mob and wipe them out. All this put together you can use a combo of skills like this. The general idea is to use Thunderbolt to meet a big wave of enemies, killing a bunch of them, and then continue using Upper Fire or Rising to knock some enemies and kill them with the rest of skills. If you are facing some ranged attackers, you can run to them with Shield Dash and combo with your upswing attacks. Simple. Against bosses things are a lot more tricky since they don't get staggered. A good plan is to use the longer range attacks at a distance until the boss uses some slow attack the moment you can flank it, and use your heavier hitter attacks. And remember to use your bashes before using Thunderbolt or Upper. For defense you should also remember your signature skills to protect yourself. And a little more. If you do things right you will be barely hit at all when fighting enemies and you will not waste money healing yourself or having to rest. And no more information for you in this video. If you want examples, I'm compiling solo runs of every dungeon in the game, and I'm also going to do advanced guides and doing some research. So if you want more Gunlance info in Lost Ark or Monster Hunter, you know what button you have to hit. Thanks for watching. Cow Slayer blasting off.